15 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to add this week. The first guy, Ramon Urias of the Baltimore Orioles. So Urias, I mentioned him last week going into the All-Star break as an ad, and this guy's been one of the hottest pickups in fantasy baseball over the last 2 weeks on the season. 10 home runs, 34 RBIs, 32 runs scored, at 264 average, and a 308 on base. But over the last few weeks here, he's been white hot. Is Urias. 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 452 batting average, and a 469 on base. So right here, he qualifies at second, third, and short. Not the greatest of positions in fantasy baseball here. And he definitely can help fantasy owners. He's been added in 38% of fantasy leagues over the last few weeks, but still out there in 54% of leagues. So the last few games here for Urias: July 13th at the Cubs, 0-for-3 with a run. July 15th at Tampa, 2-for-4, 2 homers, 3 RBIs. July 16th at Tampa, 2-for-4 with a run and a rib. July 17th at Tampa, 1-for-4 with a rib. July 22nd versus the Yankees, 1-for-4 with a run and a rib. July 23rd versus the Yankees, 3-for-4, a homer, 2 RBIs, which was a crucial home run to get him up at top in the 8th inning and 2 runs scored. And then July 24th versus the Yankees, 1-for-4. So right here, the only down thing with him is his batting average ain't going to stay up this high, obviously. Here's Urias. And his on-base to batting average isn't all that great, but he plays at weak positions. He qualifies in fantasy baseball, and he's playing on an Oriole team that this season is starting to turn the corner a little bit. I know they're not going to make the playoffs, but they've been a 500 team this season, and they're finding some diamonds in the rough like Urias this season. The next guy I look to add this week's Josh Naylor of the Cleveland Guardians. So he's been on and off this season here as an ad for fantasy owners is Naylor, but now he's starting to pick things up again and get hot on the season. 13 home runs, 51 RBIs, 30 runs scored, a stolen base, a 275 batting average, and a 327 on base here for Naylor. But over the last month of the season, 5 homers, 13 RBIs, 9 runs scored. Batting average not all that great, 265 with a 284. But right here, he's going to get an everyday opportunity, and that's what he's been getting over the last few games here. And he's heating up, especially right before the All-Star break and afterwards now. He's starting to hit as well. July 15th versus Detroit, 0-for-2 with 2 RBIs. July 16th versus Detroit, 2-for-5 in that one with a homer. July 22nd at the White Sox, 2-for-5, a run and 3 RBIs. July 23rd at the White Sox, 1-for-5 with a rib. And July 24th at the White Sox, 3-for-5 with a run. So right here, he's been hitting the baseball great hitters now. We're available in 54% of fantasy leagues. And just batting average, I think, is going to be a problem for him. But the power and RBIs are pretty decent for a guy that coming into the season was on no one's fantasy radar. And he plays on a young Cleveland Guardian team that's rebuilding and trying to find pieces here on the roster for the future. So I would give Naylor an ad this week. The Chicago White Sox. I mentioned him as an ad last week, and right now he's only out there in 42% of fantasy leagues. But the White Sox here, they've had some hitting problems this season, but now they're starting to get things going a little bit, even though Luis Roberts gone on the injured list early in the week here. Season for Makata, 5 home runs, 26 RBIs, 21 runs scored, a 212 average, and a 266 on base. But over the last few weeks here for Makata, 2 homers, 9 RBIs, 12 runs scored, a 289 average, and a 360 on base. So Makata, last few seasons, the batting average obviously hasn't been good, but he's got it going over the last few weeks here. And the injuries early in the season might have cost him some productivity here for his fantasy owners and the White Sox. But right now, he's getting it going, and I would give him an ad. July 15th in Minnesota, 1-for-4 with 2 runs. July 16th in Minnesota, 3-for-4, 2 runs. July 17th in Minnesota, 2-for-6, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. July 22nd versus Cleveland, 0-for-3 with a run. July 23rd in a doubleheader versus the Guardians, 2-for-8 with a run and 3 ribs. And July 24th versus the Guardians, 0-for-4. So right now, he don't qualify at second base anymore like he did last season, only third. But he's a guy that can help you in a couple categories. When he gets hot, he could show that power. He could hit right now, even though I don't think he's going to be hitting at these levels the rest of the season. He is Makata. But right now, while he's hot, he's definitely worth the pickup this week. The next guy's Hunter Renfroe of the Milwaukee Brewers. So I might have jumped the gun last week saying to drop Renfroe, because now he's been on a tear since the All-Star break concluded on Friday. Here's Renfroe. And on the season, 16 home runs, 36 RBIs, a stolen base, 32 runs scored, a 251 average, and a 302 on base. So Renfroe last season, he had a great year with the Red Sox, but over the last few weeks, he's been injured with this Brewer team. Then he came back from injury and wasn't doing much. But now he's hit 3 home runs in 3 games in a row here. And over the last few weeks for Renfroe, 3 homers, 9 RBIs, a stolen base, 5 runs scored, 280 batting average, and a 323 on base. So Renfroe, he's definitely a streaky player, no doubt about it. But a lot of power hitters are. And I said earlier last week as well, I don't think he's going to finish the season with 30 home runs. And I don't still think that's going to happen as well here for Renfroe. But he's definitely red hot since the return from the break. July 16th at the Giants, 1 for 5. July 16th at the Giants, 1 for 3 with a run. July 17th at San Francisco, 1 for 4, 2 RBIs. July 22nd versus the Rockies, 2 for 5. A homer, 2 ribs. July 23rd versus the Rockies, 2 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. And July 24th versus the Rockies, 2 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs. So Renfroe, he's helped this team win 3 games in a row here, is this Brewer team. And if he gets right, he could carry a club for a month or two as Renfroe in the power department. And maybe he's starting to get it going and getting more comfortable over here in Milwaukee. And right now, he's not available in many fantasy leagues, only in 39%. But right now, he's definitely worth an ad, is Renfroe. While he's on this power tear over the last few games since returning from the All-Star break. The next guy I would look to add this week is J.J. Bled-Day of the Miami Marlins. So one of their top prospects, he came up a few days ago, is Bled-Day. And in the minor leagues, he was putting up some numbers here, is the 24-year-old outfield. Then it's time for the Marlins to call up the kids. Jorge Soler went on the injured list. He's been a bust for the most part here in his first season with the Marlins. So Bled-Day in the minor leagues, 18 home runs he had, a 247 average, and a 377 on base in 67 games. So right here, he obviously has some pop. And the Marlins, we know that lineup needs some pop and some guys to get on base and hit. So in the first game of the season here for him, July 24th, in his Major League debut, 2 for 4 with a run and a stolen base, and he could steal some bases as well. So right here, I'm not saying he's going to be a huge pickup as Bled-Day, but 12-team leagues or deeper, he's definitely a guy I'm willing to take a flyer on with the power he's shown in the minor leagues and with the stolen base prowess he could bring as well. And also with the Marlins, a team not going anywhere this season, with starting to play the kids, and that's the opportunity Bled-Day's going to get. So I would give him an ad this week. The next guy is Christopher Morrell of the Chicago Cubs. So the Cubs here, I know they're a bad team this season, 22 games under 500. But they found some guys over the last few years here after blowing it up last season at the trade deadline. And Morrell's definitely one of them, I believe. 9 home runs, 29 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, 40 runs scored, a 279 average, and a 349 on base. And over the last 2 weeks here for Morrell, he's been right hot. No home runs, 3 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 6 runs scored, a 333 batting average, and a 419 on base. So right here, Morrell, he qualifies at second, third, and outfield. Great versatility. And this will probably be the last chance for fantasy owners to go out there and get him while he's only available in 36% of fantasy leagues here, is Morrell. So the last few games here for him, he's been getting it going for this Cub team, batting first tonight. July 14th versus the Mets, 0 for 2. July 16th versus the Mets in a doubleheader, 2 for 7, a rib and a stolen base. July 17th versus the Mets, 1 for 3 with a run. July 22nd at Philly, 3 for 5, 3 runs scored in RBI. July 23rd at Philly, 2 for 3, a run and a rib. And July 24th at Philly, 2 for 4 with an RBI. So right here, if you need some stolen bases, he'll show some pop in RBIs as Morrell, and great versatility in fantasy baseball. He's definitely a guy I would look to add this week. And this will be the last week owners will have an opportunity to get him on their rosters, I believe, here with his owner percentage. Next guy is just Marty Grandall of the Chicago White Sox. So Grandal, he's come back off the injured list here, and he's looked good so far in the first few games since he's been back on the season, though not a good year at all. 2 home runs, 17 RBIs, a stolen base, 6 runs scored, a 196 average, and a 300 on base. So Grandal, he's available right now, 86% of fantasy leagues here. And he's a guy we know throughout his career, low batting average, but shows power with a 20-plus home run season. So the few games back here for him after a long stint on the injured list. July 22nd versus Cleveland, 0 for 4 with a rib. And July 23rd versus Cleveland, 4 for 7 with an RBI. So we know catch is a weak position this season in fantasy baseball. We know Grandal, like I mentioned, he's had a couple decent seasons. Last year, low batting average, but he still showed power in RBIs with 23 and 62 with a 240 batting average. So if he could show some power here with the last few months of the season left here. And driving some runs at catcher, I think he's pretty decent because his on-base percentage is pretty good with a 300 on base to the weak batting average of 196. So Grandall qualifies at catcher in first. Good versatility, but obviously you're going to want to use him at catcher. And I think in 12-team leagues or deeper, he probably still is a top 12 catcher, even with the weak numbers this season. So right now I would go out there and get Grandal, and if he struggles once again or doesn't do much for your fantasy team, you just drop him, and it's just a low risk, high reward type of move. The next guy is Carson Kelly of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Kelly, one of the former top prospects in the Cardinal system a few years ago, and they got him in the Goldschmidt deal, and he definitely hasn't done much in his career here on the offensive side of things. As Kelly on the season, 5 home runs, 16 RBIs, 18 runs scored, a 213 batting average, and a 261 on base. So right here, he's only had 140 at-bats this season. Not much going on for him, but over the last 2 weeks here, he's been red hot as Kelly. 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 417 average, and a 481 on base here. So right now, he's available in 88% of fantasy leagues. And just like I mentioned with Grandal, 12-team leagues or deeper, I would give Kelly an ad. Catches a weak position, and he's putting up numbers right now. So right now, while he's on a hot streak, I would ride it out with Kelly. Like I mentioned, available in tons of leagues here, and see what he could do. And if he fizzles out, you just drop him back to the waiver wire. July 12th at the Giants, 1 for 3. July 15th at San Diego, 1 for 4. July 16th at the Padres, 2 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs. July 17th at the Padres, 1 for 2. With a run in that ball game. July 22nd versus Washington, 3 for 4 with a run and an RBI. And July 23rd versus the Nats, 1 for 3, a homer, and RBI, 2 runs scored in that one. So right now, he's getting an everyday opportunity. And even some ball games last week, he batted first in this lineup here is Carson Kelly. So obviously he's going nowhere, and this Diamondback team's going nowhere in a rebuilding mode over the last few seasons. And guys like Kelly are going to get everyday opportunities. The next guy is Nico Hoerner of the Chicago Cubs. I mentioned Hoerner over the last few weeks as an ad here, and surprisingly he's still available in 52% of fantasy leagues, especially that he qualifies at second and short, 2 weak positions in their own. On the season, 6 home runs, 30 RBIs, 32 runs scored, 10 stolen bases, 303 batting average, and a 339 on base. So his on base to batting average ratio obviously isn't good for Nico Hoerner, but he plays at 2 weak positions in fantasy, and he definitely can help. This guy can hit the baseball, and he's definitely done it over the last month of the season. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 14 runs scored, a 347 average, and a 392 on base. A Jonathan VR, they got rid of him last month, and Nico Hoerner's taken off, and he's played every day for this Cub team. So the last few games here for him, July 14th versus the Mets, 2 for 3. July 16th in a doubleheader versus the Mets, 0 for 7 with a run and a bag. July 17th versus the Mets, 3 for 4 with an RBI. July 22nd at Philly, 1 for 6 with a run and 2 RBIs. July 23rd at Philly, 1 for 4 with a homer, a stolen base, 2 runs scored. And July 24th at Philly, 0 for 3. So right here, he's playing good as Hoerner. He gets on base. He don't strike out a lot. He puts the ball in play. And he's getting an everyday opportunity for this Cub team. And he's a good base stealer as well, which is a lost art in Major League Baseball. So right here, I definitely will look to pick up Hoerner this week. And the final hitter I looked at this week's Jorge Mateo of the Baltimore Orioles. So Jorge Mateo, he's another guy that qualifies at a few positions. Second, short, and outfield. Season here for Mateo, if you need stolen bases, this is the guy to go out there and get. Everything else he's not doing much of. 7 home runs, 25 RBIs, 23 stolen bases already, 35 runs scored, a 210 average, and a 261 on base. So right here, batting average and on base is a wash if you're going to go out there and get Mateo. RBIs for a guy at the bottom of the order, 25 obviously isn't good, but you'll live with it. And his runs are decent, but it's all about the stolen bases here for him. But over the last 2 weeks, that average has jumped up, 355 average, only a 375 on base though. Bad on base to batting average ratio. He's a free swinger, is Mateo, and he's a hacker up there. But he's got a home and 3 RBIs, 6 runs scored with the 2 bags over the 2 weeks as well, with the 355 and the 375 on base. So right here, the last few games here for Mateo, July 15th at Tampa, 1 for 4. July 16th at Tampa, 2 for 4 with a run. July 17th at Tampa, 1-for-4. July 22nd versus the Yankees, 1-for-4 with a run and a rib. July 23rd versus the Yankees, 2-for-4 with 2 runs, an RBI, and a stolen base. And July 24th here for him, 1-for-4. So right now he's on a 7-game hitting streak here as Mateo. And that's definitely a start for his batting average. If he could boost that batting average just up a little bit more and continue to steal bases like he has, he's definitely a guy that can help fantasy owners. And the stolen bases is his specialty. So he's available in 70% of fantasy leagues. And that's a few hitters I look to add here for Week 15 of the fantasy baseball season.